Good morning and welcome to the fourth Sunday of Easter. A reading from the Gospel of John. Jesus said, "I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd is one who lays down his life for his sheep. The hired man, since he is not the shepherd and the sheep do not belong to him, abandons the sheep and runs away as soon as he sees a wolf coming. And then the wolf attacks and scatters the sheep. This is because he is only a hired man and has no concern for the sheep. I am the Good Shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for my sheep. And there are other sheep I have that are not of this fold, and these I have to lead as well. They too will listen to my voice, and there will be only one flock and one shepherd. The Father loves me because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me. I lay it down of my own free will, and as it is in my power to lay it down, so it is in my power to take it up again. And this is the command I have been given by my Father." The Gospel of the Lord. When I made my first communion many years ago, my godmother bought me my prayer book and rosary beads. On the cover of the prayer book was an image of Jesus as the Good Shepherd, a long-haired, blue-eyed Jesus carrying a lamb in his arm and surrounded by grazing sheep. A peaceful, idyllic scene. I was the lamb, Jesus was the shepherd, and all was right with the world. Many years later, and it was many years later, while reading John's Gospel for the first time, I was enthralled by the healing of the man born blind and the blazing row that ensued between this healed man and the Pharisees, between Jesus himself and the Pharisees. It seems that no matter what Jesus says or does, these Pharisees find fault with him. He cannot be from God, they claim, because they know otherwise. Meanwhile, their opposition to Jesus grows, and they throw the healed blind man out of the temple. Context is terribly important. The Good Shepherd passage that we have just heard immediately follows that rancorous scene in the temple. Lose the context for this passage, and we are left with the image on my communion prayer book, a gentle Jesus in a pastoral scene with seemingly not a care in the world. After healing the man born blind and the row between himself and the Pharisees, Jesus condemns them for their blind arrogance. They are supposed to be the leaders, the shepherds of God's people, but in their self-righteousness, their self-sufficiency, they have become blind. And in their blindness, they condemn, expel, and hurt. "You were utterly born in sin," is their total condemnation of the man who was born blind and healed by Jesus. Jesus sets himself up in stark contrast to these unfaithful leaders of God's people, these bad shepherds. When Jesus says, "I am the Good Shepherd," he is not simply giving us an image of himself that is peaceful, pastoral, and quiet. He is comparing his care for the sheep, for God's people, with that of other supposed shepherds who are in fact hirelings and thieves. Jesus is the Good Shepherd who gathers, not scatters the flock, the one who doesn't abandon the sheep when the wolf shows up. Jesus assures the Pharisees that he is not simply the Good Shepherd in comparison to them. He is. But he also claims that he knows his sheep and they know him. The Pharisees are clearly out of touch with the people they are supposed to be shepherding, and we see this portrayed throughout the Gospel of John. In them, the people cannot hear the voice of God. Through them, the people are not being nourished, uplifted, or shepherded. But the Pharisees don't understand, cannot understand, won't understand. There is an inability in them to accept Jesus and his teaching. There is nothing life-giving about those claiming to be shepherds, but who are in fact thieves and robbers. So yes, this is a difficult gospel passage, a warning for those of us who are supposed to be today's shepherds. It reminds us that Jesus is the one, the example we too must follow, because he is the one who will provide what the sheep need for life, life in abundance. Now, in case the sheep get a big head in relation to Jesus' criticism of the not-so-good shepherds, Jesus reminds his sheep, each one of us, that we have a responsibility to hear his voice, to know his voice, and also follow him. We have to listen to what he is saying. Following Jesus, we find nourishment, pasture, and become more and more familiar with his presence in our lives and the sound of his voice. We learn to distinguish the voice of the Good Shepherd and follow from the voice of the not-so-good shepherds from whom we flee. And then Jesus introduces his uniqueness. He lays down his life for his sheep. This self-gift of the shepherd unto death for his sheep is unbelievable. There is a negative relationship between the hireling and the sheep. The hireling is only interested in personal gain. There is no concern for the sheep. I love this passage because we see Jesus no longer concerning himself with others who claim to be shepherds and aren't. His main focus or concern is the relationship he has with his flock and with his Father. Nothing else matters for Jesus. He himself will do the shepherding. He knows his sheep, that's you and me, and we know him. Jesus also reminds us in today's gospel that he has other sheep, not of this fold, and that they also must be shepherded. They too will hear and heed his voice. No one can be, no one ever will be excluded.